Hello and welcome to the Animation Communication Podcast, your source for discussion about animation, film, fandom, and more. So please join your host, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP, and Lauren Kizich, the Abbey Roadie, for today's discussion. If you like what you hear, please remember to support by giving a like, a follow, as well as subscribing to the main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube. Spread the word and keep being a part of a great community. This episode is appropriate for all ages.
Welcome to this week of Animation Communication. I'm your host, KP, who is for the first time drinking with this podcast, but not heavily, so, because Mike's Hard Lemonade is known to be the hardest alcohol substance known to man. With me, as usual, we have Lauren, who does hello. Stuff. And then we have
I'm drinking iced tea in the meantime.
You're not allowed to do that. You're from California. You can't steal the things.
It's triple digit heat. We can only do so much.
You have to suffer. Anyway, and then we have our guest this week is my friend Keely, who was on the team for a while, and then she does really neat art. Say hi, Keely. Why don't you tell the people who you are and what you do on the internet?
Well, hello. My name is Keely. I usually go by the handle KeyLime Keely, or KeyLime Creations is my business, and been known more around the Brony fandom as a small part of Team KP for a while, but also pony artist, just general illustration, and freelancing is really what I'm doing outside of my day job, so woo!
Yeah, and why don't you tell the people your day job, because I think it's kind of fun.
Oh, my day job is I'm a sign artist at Trader Joe's, which is a grocery store, for those who aren't familiar. So yeah, it's a little bit more graphic design than it is illustration, and I've been learning a lot over the past few years. Some of it I've been able to incorporate into my art and into my business, so that's been cool. But yeah, no, we make all the end cap signs, all the big colorful signs you'll see around the store, down to the little signs that tell you what everything is and what the prices are. The monotonous stuff.
Okay, and for those who don't know, can you explain like the kind of vibe of Trader Joe's? Because it's known for its vibe, I guess. It's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, so Trader Joe's, it is a smaller grocery chain. They kind of pride themselves on being a neighborhood grocery store, in the sense that they want everyone to feel welcome, and they want local people working there. So not a huge amount of commuting if possible, from long distances. And usually pretty laid back, pretty chill. If you walk in, usually you'll see a smiling face that will actually greet you, instead of just kind of shrug and move out of your way or ignore you the entire time you're there. And yeah, we like to have fun while we're stocking shelves and selling you food. We love to talk about food. Yeah, so it is really just a regular grocery store, except everything is under the Trader Joe's label. They source different suppliers to be able to sell things that only we can get, or some standard things that, your regular Honey Nut cereal and just regular produce and stuff like that. Stuff that doesn't really need a private label. But yeah, we have a selection of specialty stuff, but we're not a specialty store. We're really just like any other grocery store. So
yeah.
Not to plug. Go ahead, Lauren.
I was gonna say, fun fact: my brother's a crew member at Trader Joe's.
Oh, no way!
No, yeah,
Sweet.
and what's cool, is Trader Joe's is Southern California based. It
yes.
came out of Southern California. Specifically, it came out of originally out of South Pasadena. I know all about, and I'm very familiar with Trader Joe's and the vibe, and you are 100% correct on it, feeling like it's a neighborhood store.
Yeah, anyone who has grown up in California is very familiar. You guys have Trader Joe's one every couple of miles, so
Lauren, are you telling me?
It's true.
Are you telling me I could have been using your brother's employee discount this whole time?
Depends if you wanted to like commute to go find him, but yeah.
I mean, maybe if I'm doing a big shop one day. But anyway, like,
Just
I guess
fly across the country.
it's fine. It's just, to save money on groceries, but it's got like it's the only grocery store I think I know that has like its own kind of weird fan base, and they have like newsletters about like the cute stuff, and they're just like, I don't know, it's hard to describe.
Yeah, there is the frequent flyer newsletter, which it's always used to promote new products or seasonal products or anything like that they're trying to. It's almost like when you think of a grocery store that tries to push certain deals on their products, and they buy bananas for this week for this this amount of money.
Yeah, it's not a sales flyer necessarily. In terms of like, oh, this is on sale. It's like, oh, we have this to sell you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
which is nice, and especially I always look forward to it for the seasonal stuff because
which is coming.
Especially,
it's coming soon.
once it gets into fall, you get all the good pumpkin spice, pumpkin flavored, like maple flavored, all that good stuff. And then it gets to Christmas, you get all the peppermint and gingerbread, and yeah, it's all good stuff. And especially for long time, Trader Joe's customers and fans. It's always, every year there's a lot of these products that are, you look forward to them because they only come around once a year and then they're gone. So
it's like a cult, I guess. Come back to when we get to Halloween time, because then Lauren can tell you all the cool things to watch our Halloween recommendations with your Trader Joe's pumpkin shit, I guess.
Well, do that update quickly, because generally the Halloween, anything super specialized as far as holidays go, are there for a couple of weeks and then they're gone. So
so you got to jump fast. Like
you do.
They have like Trader Joe's, for example, has their own version of like Oreo cookies, and they're called JoJo's. And around Halloween, they have Halloween colored, like like it's like a little dark chocolate cookie with orange cream filling. And they look like little, if I remember, they look like little jack-o'-lanterns.
Yeah. They're my favorites.
So, those are my favorite JoJo's. Besides, the other one is my peppermint JoJo's. I love those. Yeah,
okay.
Sorry, we're talking
Welcome to the Trader Joe's podcast.
To people who don't know, but
okay.
This podcast is not sponsored by Trader Joe's.
We just really
fuck
like
those
their
guys.
stuff.
No, I'm kidding. Okay, Lauren, what's the stuff going on this week?
Okay, so as of recording this, the Mulan live-action movie just came out on Disney Plus for that wonderful $30 additional charge on top of your membership if you're in that boat, which I am not on that, but I have been reading plenty of reviews and reactions to the movie, and not doing too hot, and that's putting it gently. I guess it seems to have undermined what the original Disney film did back in 1998, which was showing Mulan kind of coming into her own as a hero and building up her confidence and her strength and her skills, and becoming a hero. Whereas in this version, she's just OP from the get-go. She kind of has, I guess, superpowers to a degree, or at least a supernatural backing to her abilities from the get-go, and her family already believes in her, and so, it just seems kind of a little bit OP to me, and apparently to a lot of other people. I don't know. It's just, some people did like the action sequences in there, but I don't know. This is, again, a different telling of Mulan's story, and this is when they were trying to be, I guess, quote, more accurate to the original tale, but obviously taking their liberties, and it's not pleasing either audience. So.
Yeah, that sounds like something that isn't fun, and I really wanted a CGI Mushu played by Eddie Murphy, but actually Eddie Murphy, we missed that opportunity.
And there's also no songs, as far as I remember. They got rid of the songs in the movie, so it's not a musical thing, and they got rid of Shang. kind of, sort of, yeah. There was a lot of things that they were removing, and then I do remember Mushu was originally a complaint point, I guess, for Chinese audiences, because they thought he was too westernized, and it just didn't gel with them. But then you have to look at this and go, well, come on, at least the Mulan movie in 1998 was more of like a comedy with adventure and action to it, and did have some dramatic aspects, but it felt like more or less a comedy, and this one's trying to be a war film. So I guess Eddie Murphy wouldn't have worked as well in the tone of that.
No, we need Eddie Murphy, but no CGI. He's just like wearing a Mushu like onesie.
Okay, but we do need that. We need that cut.
I'd pay $30 for that.
Yeah, actually.
Like the meme material.
I think you
Are you
wouldn't be
kidding?
the only one. I know there's a lot of people who are like, it doesn't have Mushu, I'm not watching it. Like,
like so many people were just like, I'm just gonna watch the 1998 version instead on Disney Plus without that $30 extra charge. And
That is what I did.
And I'm like, good call.
And then I watched Mulan too. But go ahead, Keely.
Oh no, I was gonna say, I think that definitely if we think about it as an adaptation of the animated Mulan that we grew up with, that's when it's definitely gonna hit a wall of failing our expectations. From what it sounds like, I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna wait for December, but from what it sounds like is they kind of made it more akin to those Chinese martial arts movies that are really popular, and so it's still disappointing to hear about the lack of character development. So I'll have to wait and see in December about how true that is. But if she really does start off OP, I'm like, well, I guess if I just take this as another Chinese martial arts movie, then it could still hold entertainment value. It just won't be Mulan as Disney did it like 20 years ago. So yeah, I think it's just about what you go in expecting. And I think we knew from the first trailer that it wasn't going to be a musical. And
but they do have it's funny though that they have the motifs from the 1998 version.
True.
Like when you have a reflection playing in the trailer as a dramatic orchestral score.
Right.
So, which I admit did give me goosebumps when I first saw the trailer, and then it just because it was that nostalgic callback that you do get those goosebumps hearing it, and I don't know, it just seemed to fit so well for that. But if they were not going to go all the way with that, it just feels like an opportunity missed.
Yeah, I loved that theme in the original Mulan. That, because actually that would be such a relatable theme today. I was listening to a Disney playlist on Spotify the other day, and the new Reflection came up with Christina Aguilera, and it brought me back to how much I loved that song when I was a kid, because I kind of felt that way for various reasons, but you can only imagine how like certain people would feel about it now, being able to express who you really are and match who you feel that person is inside of you with the person that you actually see in the mirror. So yeah, if they totally took out all the development, then yeah, that does kind of take the wind out of those sails.
Exactly.
But
we could have had a progressive Mulan movie that like kind of put those hints down a little bit further as far as like LGBT stuff, but then we get this movie that's okay-ish. But I think to Lauren's point, or this whole discussion point, is that I think Disney was trying to satisfy the Chinese / Asian market, specifically Chinese, because that's where the movie is from.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Yeah, so with casting all like Chinese specific actors, from my understanding, but because I think they just couldn't make both camps happy, because I guess we have Asian representation in a positive way with the original Mulan, but I can see the point of like, oh, we have Eddie Murphy and he just won't shut up. So
And it's like, it's just I know, yeah, it's going in with different expectations for different tones of film. Like obviously, like what we already said before, was that the animated version and the live action version were already established. They're two very different tones of story. But yeah, what does matter is how much we care about the characters and what they're going through, and we want to see them through to the end to succeed in their goals, or to survive, if it's a war film, right? So it's, but if they're not somebody you can relate to, it's just like having somebody who is just like completely, like a superhero who's completely overpowered, has no flaws. Well, how can you relate to that? You have to, everyone looks for the humanity in a character, the flaws, something that they can latch onto because we are flawed. So it's like, that's why we look for that relatability. And yeah, if you can't find that in your own lead, that's kind of an issue.
Yeah, it sounds like they made her into a Mary Sue, and that's kind of disappointing. So,
and Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't people like boycotting this movie for something?
Yes. Well, it's also because the lead actress, and this was even a while back, so people are continuing to bring it back up because it is still a point relevant now, is that she spoke in support of the Hong Kong police in terms of the people protesting and fighting for democracy in Hong Kong. And so there's a lot of police brutality going on over there, and she spoke in support of the Hong Kong police, and basically that left a sour taste in everyone's mouth across the globe, especially with it, when you're trying to push a movie where the hero is basically fighting all of those things.
What could possibly go wrong?
It's very backwards, and that's just putting it lightly. It just was, it basically, I feel like it just already, it soured prematurely what they were trying to push for the film before the film even had the chance to come out. And so people were already going into it with like negative expectations, and only to have him like be further realized by how bad the movie was in a lot of people's eyes. It just made it even worse, So it's like, I don't know, but yeah.
There was another point, but I forgot it. How do you guys feel about it coming out on Disney Plus, like in general, because that wasn't part of the plan?
Well, I mean, you got to do what you got to do in the wake of COVID. So, I mean, I figured that was going to be the case given when it originally came out. I mean, it wasn't able to come out in theaters in the States, but it did have a Chinese release, and that didn't work out very well given that it came out around COVID times. And so...
Whoops.
Yep. So, I mean, I guess what Disney tried to do was they tried to basically safeguard themselves and for the States, and they just put the $30 extra to make up for the fact that, one, it was an expensive movie to make, is to my understanding, and two, to make up for the fact that they aren't selling movie tickets. They have to like make up for that. So because Disney Plus can only get you so far with the subscription price, I guess, in terms of money making. So they do the upcharge. It's almost like I guess it would almost be like paying pay-per-view on any other platform. Like if you were to do Amazon and you have a Prime Video, and there's a lot of movies that come with it, but then you obviously have to rent the movie. If there's one that you want that isn't free, that comes with the membership. But anyway, but this is the first time that they're doing that on their platform for Disney Plus, and I get why a lot of people were upset with that, and most of them are trying to wait until December when they remove that charge. But I get why they did it. It's just $30 is pretty steep.
Yeah. I mean, I can get it that if they have one purchase of Mulan per subscription, that's like at least three movie tickets. And Mulan, what's it rated? PG or PG-13? Do we know that?
I think
Do you want me to Google it?
Let me verify that. I believe it's PG, but let me double check.
And I mean, all the people who grew up with it have kids of their own, so I bet like it would have been a family kind of movie. So maybe that was their justification. They're like, well, it would cost you $30 to see this in the theater anyway. So, you know, or around $30. It is
PG-13.
It is.
Oh,
okay.
Gasp.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, sure enough.
But to that effect, I would almost be more likely to buy it if it was like what Amazon does. And most movies on Amazon that you can buy digitally are around $20, like $15, $20, depending on the movie. If they would have just left the pay gate up for a lower price, and that way you could like quote unquote own it. I know that doesn't quite work with Disney's current subscription model, because once you subscribe, everything's free to watch, or like, you know, everything's included. So to come out of nowhere with this $30 is like, it's a bit jarring.
Yeah, considering other movies that were released earlier this year, like Scoob and Trolls World Tour, these were coming out at $20 tops for a release, which that was fine. Which it's a much better deal considering if you're paying the $20, and yes, like you're having a whole family watch it. That's why when Disney came out with the $30. Yes, it would be another value thing for a whole family to watch it all together. But when you compare it to when Scoob and Trolls World Tour and other movies came out, like even Bill and Ted when it just came out, Bill and Ted 3, also $20 to watch on pay-per-view kind of thing, but or on demand. That's where it seems steep in comparison. Because then they're like, well, for a movie that has been getting so much backlash, you're going to charge $30 to make up for the fact that it isn't in theaters, when all these other movies from other companies were able to release their films at the $20 charge. So what's going on with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Business.
Yeah. I'm sure there was a reason for all of it, but yeah.
I'm sure Disney's bleeding really bad though with everything. So
yeah, considering the parks, you know, well, at least not in California are not open, and in Europe they haven't opened Disneyland Paris back up or anything like that. So yeah, I guess they're trying to make up for all that as best as they can.
Okay, what else is going on, Lauren?
Well, we could also talk about how there was the Nickelodeon show, and I should say Nick Jr. specifically, Made by Maddie. It's a show that's supposed to be coming out soon, but I guess its release got pulled due to the fact that a lot of people were pointing out similarities and downright plagiarism of character designs and whatnot from the short film Hair Love, which won an Oscar this year. It is like saying that the character designs, the family dynamic, and right down to their pet cat looking exactly like the ones in Hair Love. It misled a lot of people into thinking that this was going to be the Hair Love series that at least is in talks of being in development right now. And so, yeah, it kind of blew up in Nick's faces.
I said this before, but like, you had one job, like I can't believe they they should. I feel like you should know better, because there's not that many cartoons based around like African American families specifically. So like, you're gonna even if it's coincidence, it's just like, still, really, it's not like it was like some like indie thing. It was like the opposite of that. So I don't know.
And I feel bad when a whole team gets pulled in by controversy when it wasn't their fault. Like, so many artists, designers, animators, all these people that are like, they're just doing their job, and then it was
probably a call by their higher ups to have designs like that, or like, oh no, we don't have to make up stuff from scratch. Just use this reference, quote unquote.
Look at this. I Googled it, guys. Someone did it for us.
Yeah, and on top of that, there was the other predominant part of the controversy was that the show was also being spearheaded by predominantly white people. Like, I think maybe there were some staff crew members that were like that were working on it that were African American, but the people who were leading, if they were leading story or production or were directing, they were predominantly white. So that also isn't exactly the best look.
This adds insult to injury.
Mm-hmm. And I believe it was the director and the creator of the story for Hair Love definitely took note, and I believe is taking them to court about it. So,
good for him.
Yeah. I believe his name is Matthew Cherry, correct?
Yeah, he also created Proud Family.
So there you go.
Yay.
So that begs the question, why didn't they just bring him in on the project? Like,
see, and that was the point that a lot of people were bringing up too. Was like, well, if they were going to do this, why didn't they just talk to him about it and say, hey, want to do this? Because we got this lined up. But
do you like money? We have money. We're Viacom. Oh, Lord. Okay. And there was one more headline.
Okay, so we'll quickly address it, mostly because I'm particularly very, very, very excited about it, is the good news is Primal Season 1 Part 2 is coming out real soon as we're about to enter fall. The Part 2 of Season 1 is going to come out very, very soon. And Season 2 just got greenlit. So we'll be getting more of Spear and Fang, for those of you who have been keeping up with the show. For those of you who haven't heard us talk about it before, we did on a previous podcast before, was Primal. If you don't know about the show, it's an Adult Swim show led by Jendy Tartakovsky, and I'm sorry if I keep butchering his name. I'm like, I really
everyone does.
I can never say his name is, but he's but his series for the Primal is about it takes place in prehistoric times, and it's about basically the survival of a caveman and a Tyrannosaurus Rex, as they basically lean on and depend on each other to survive the perilous, dangerous world of the prehistoric eras. So it's like, gory, for sure.
It's like The Good Dinosaur, but with violence.
Way better than The Good Dinosaur. I will definitely say that. Like, I would 1,000,000% rewatch Primal over Good Dinosaur any day. And I highly, highly, highly recommend it if there are any of you that have not watched it yet. And I really don't want to give away too much but I will say it is stunning because, one, it is beautifully animated in 2D. So it's maintaining the look and character design aesthetic that Jendy likes to work with. So it's very Samurai Jack that kind of appeal to it, especially if you think of the gritty Samurai Jack. I'm not saying reboot, but the season 3 that we got later on. It's very much that, and plus it's also got pretty much no dialogue. Which is also awesome because it's that way focusing more on the characters and how they're reacting to their environments and being able to let the visuals tell the story rather than somebody narrating or telling you what to think and feel about the scene. Mm-hmm. And so much
that's definitely a departure from Western. Most Western cinema is very reliant on that dialogue. Mm-hmm. Or just some kind of verbal exposition rather than letting the visuals talk for themselves. So yeah, that's pretty neat. I'm gonna have to watch this.
Yeah, I think you'll absolutely love it. And I do know that I think it was April Fool's. They released a surprise episode to tease the second half of the first season. You just have to watch from the beginning because the series just gets wilder and wilder with each episode. It's wonderful. So anyway, that does it for the headlines, though.
Okay, so let's get to the actual part of the episode, which is should you go to art school? I'll give an intro about that because I have some experience, and then I'll let Keely and Lauren talk about it because Lauren went to art school and Keely's very self-taught, and I'm just like, has some talent every once in a while. So anyway, I'm trying to draw like spend several. I'm getting used to my tablet, so I'm trying to spend like several hours a day drawing. But like, man, line art is hard. Like, it's annoying. Hate it. So anyway, so this is a common like artistic-y thing. So that people have to struggle with is whether you should. There's like a couple of art schools. There's Cal Arts, which is in California, which is the famous and best one. There's RISD, which is in Rhode Island, that I think Seth MacFarlane and the Avatar boys went to, Mike and Brian. There's SCAD, which costs a lot of money. And I think those are the main ones. Anyone
there's Ringling in Florida.
Yeah,
okay.
That's a big one.
And
any other ones?
And there's also not even including the schools up in Canada.
Yes.
And then on top of that, there's also Gobelin in France, in the heart of Paris. And then there's just animation schools now. They're just all over the place.
It's like, I hope you have money. So I guess I'll give my background and experience with this because I'm probably in the middle of the two. So I went to not public college, but like, government state college. And I like, let me make it clear, you do not need an art degree to get an art job, but it helps, especially like in the structure of this economy. So like when kids like come to me at cons, remember cons? I miss cons. But anyway, like kids in college would come to me, or kids in high school would be like, I want to animate, what do I do? And I'm like, well, just go to college, get a degree, but like really practice your art. If you can go to art school, that's great, but if you can't, you just gotta like work really hard on the side. And because from my understanding, and Lauren, like jump in because you probably know the job market in LA much better than I do, but a lot of when you're getting into entry level positions, even if it's just like PA stuff, a lot of times they just like would like some kind of degree in either animation or film or like graphic design or like one of those things. So I get a film degree. I probably should have gone a graphic design degree in honesty, because that would have probably forced me to get used to more digital programs, and not now when I'm 27 and been out of school for several years and like don't know what we're doing in COVID. But I think for me, I really wanted to go to art college. Mom, I'm sorry. I told her I was podcasting. Cut that. Anyway, so I really wanted to go to art college specifically for being kind of around my people much faster, because no matter where you're going, if you're just going to skate school or something, there's no better feeling that just like you can talk about animation like we are on the podcast, like if you're listening, and then you don't have to explain to people or like defend it and be like, why are you watching cartoons? You're like an adult. And I'm just like, I don't feel like dealing with this right now. So, that's why I like the team. And like, that's a lot of why I like the Bronies back in the day, is because they didn't really have to worry about like, this is made for girls. It's just like the story was good and people were invested in it. And like, we didn't have to awkwardly explain why a specific medium, why it doesn't matter what the medium is. It's just good. Just go watch it. So, but that being said, so yeah, my family couldn't afford it, so I went to state school and I got a film degree, a bachelor's degree, yay. And then, so that's kind of my take on it. Lauren, why don't you talk about your schooling things?
So I attended a Jesuit university. Now, for those of you who are not religiously affiliated or familiar, Jesuit is kind of sort of like Catholic university. So it was a private university. It was Loyola Marymount, which is out here in LA, and from my experience, it was the absolute perfect place for me, because when you have to, because when I was applying for colleges, I had to consider there were art institutes and there were universities. there is a definite difference between an institute and a university. When you have an institute, you are solely focused on your particular major, and that's it. Like, there really aren't any other classes that you have to take. It's more like so I guess what you could say is, like, it's not so much like getting the whole university experience of like taking your other classes, like other GEs and stuff like that, and plus a lot of people tend to go to an institute for additional classes to, like, be almost like supplemental to your education. So it's like, let's say you're taking all these other animation courses or character design courses and art courses, but you wanted to take more figure drawing, or you wanted to take other, special classes so you can, like, further hone your skills. Institutes are excellent for that. But if you wanted something, if you were like me and wanted a full university experience, which meant, like, you could have your classes, you could have kind of like I guess you could say community involvement and a certain social interaction, because there is a vibe to being at a university, which would be, there's the whole collegiate setting. So you got everybody from all different majors there, all mixing in with the film majors and the art majors and the and communications and history, and so you got everybody there, right? On top of that, when I was there, I was also in a sorority. So I was, and at the time when I did that, I was one of the very few people that was in animation, because I was one of 15 students admitted into the animation school or I should say the animation school at Loyola Marymount, which is a department in the student School of Film and Television there. And so it was I'm losing my train of thought here. It's hot. But being a part of that university experience was the exact balance I needed. And at the time when I was in the sorority, I was one of the very few people that was in animation and in a sorority, because there is a lot of community involvement, like doing service and fundraising and all of that good stuff for good causes. But you had to be very involved in everything you did, plus animation, which is a full-time thing in itself, because you're doing short films, you're doing thesis films, you're doing projects that require you to be up all hours of the night sometimes. But I did find my balance. And what was cool is that once I did that, other people realized that, oh, she did it. She did Greek and animation. Maybe I can do it. And so actually other people were also following after me, as I realized. It was kind of cool. I don't recommend it if you cannot handle a crazy workload, but I was able to fare just fine. But
why don't we backtrack a little bit? Why don't you describe, because like what Greek culture is for people, especially that are non-Americans, and then kind of
so
discuss,
being a part of a sorority is not like in the movies what everybody seems to depict. At least for me, my Greek experience was excellent. It was like we were just a bunch of people who liked to hang out. There were a bunch of people who loved animation just as much as I did. In my sorority. So it's basically a bunch of people that want to get together and help communities and do philanthropic stuff, like fundraising for special organizations, and like ours was speech and hearing impaired. So we did a lot of stuff to help people who were who needed help with, like, hearing aids, like being able to fund organizations that were helping those who were hearing impaired. And so that was our primary focus, and each sorority and fraternity has a different philanthropic focus. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, to kind of bring it back around to my major, what was so excellent about being a part of that school was, one, you have the community of other people who are there with you, who are also taking all the classes with you, and those are friendships that you will actually, grow and develop, and you can actually maintain those friendships after you graduate. And that's what's great, because animation isn't a huge industry. I mean, it's like the community in LA, alone is very small. So you get to know everyone pretty quickly. Or you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and it's very tight knit. So basically everybody gets to know everybody pretty quickly. Also, out of my experience, I learned so much about the tools and about networking and all the skills and the materials that I needed to prepare for when I would go out into the working world. Everything was there, and the professors, every one of them, I genuinely loved every single one of my professors, who were all industry professionals or had been retired industry professionals who at least knew, at the very least they knew how everything worked in the working world, and just knew how animation was, as it continued to change and grow, as the industry continued to change and grow, that they kept up with it. And they knew tons of people and they would bring in those people who would share their industry experience and their knowledge and their connections with us. So, I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. I wouldn't have done anything different looking back on it and having that experience there. It's like, even just earlier today, I was reminiscing on certain parts of, like, just remembering the certain little things I used to do in school and going, man, simpler times compared to now.
Now we drink caffeine and solidation and just like wait for COVID to be over. Yay.
Yeah. And so out of my experience with going to a university, I truly believed it was, and still do believe it was absolutely worth every moment that I was there. Especially with making the connections and learning all that you could learn there. I mean, it was all concentrated in one place. Whereas if you try to do it on your own, it's possible, but it takes a lot more to try and network and connect. And that's why I always recommend that people go to conventions, because I mean, and KP can even speak for this as well, is that the connections are made at conventions. And you never know. You could be networking with your next business partner, your next creative collaborator. It's so important to go out there and communicate with other people and get to know them. And before you know, you're exchanging business cards and you're working with them, right? So, but yeah, and coming out of that experience, and it is important, especially in LA, that you do have a degree. It does give you a certain foot up in the industry, to get a job and have that degree, because it does show that you're backed up with, how to work certain programs, how the processes, how production pipelines are, because you've gotten all that training and education on that. So it's not like I feel like it's maybe there's a certain trust to knowing how things work if you have the degree, because they're like, okay, well, then you took this class, and you know how all these work. So and this is just me kind of just, talking out of my own experience. So I don't know, it may be different for other people, but in my general experience, that's how it's been.
Okay.
Well, it's like once you get the degree, you have the reputation of the school behind you.
Yeah, especially that. And that's why I really do try to push for LMU so much, because because their animation school is absolutely top notch, and a lot of the professors that I've had there, not only have they been excellent, but they were also alums themselves that where they went out into the industry, and then they came back and were doing teaching as well as maintaining industry jobs. So like Van Partible, for one, creator Johnny Bravo, he was one of my professors, and his thesis film from LMU Animation was what became Johnny Bravo for Cartoon Network. So just saying, it can happen.
Bragging rights. I'll just add some points before Keely. We pass the mic to Keely. But some of the things I've learned from someone who moved to LA after I got my degree, because that was the only way it could work financially, is I know Lauren knows this, but people that have grown up in LA have a certain advantage, because they're already established there. They know the industry, they know the schools. And the biggest thing is they can commute from home. Like, holy crap, that would have been nice. Or other people who, a lot of times studios hire people that are outside or coming outside the country. So we talked about Canada and stuff like that. So what studios will do, which is a little scummy, a little red flaggy, is they'll promise someone from Canada a job if they move to LA, and they can pay them lower than American wage. Well, not like lesser for the same job for someone like a senior person in America, because that's how economics works. So not like below minimum wage. Like hopefully no one's doing anything illegal, but you know, I don't know. And that's usually how you know, a lot of people like our age-ish like make it into the industry essentially. So like one of my points is like, don't feel bad if you're like not in the industry at a certain point, because a lot of times people have advantages that you might not be aware of. Like CalArts is the #1 like school people go to because like everyone lives there, like they have tons of like famous alums. Disney started CalArts, you know, it's great. But it's also super expensive, and a lot of times people don't even finish because they get scouted from like studios to go do things and stuff like that. So you never know what kind of advantages people will have to have access to that kind of stuff. Like I remember Lauren Faust on Twitter once said that like the only reason she could afford CalArts in the first place, and she came from out of state, is because her dad, I think, was a service or a military person, and he died. You know, I think when she was very small, or like 6 or 7. And so she got a pension from him from the government, and that's how she could afford to do that. So, you know, a lot of times, like, the artsy kids come from families that already are well off. So, you know, don't feel too bad.
On top of that, there's a lot of alumni from CalArts who can also even attest that they said, like, it was more like CalArts came to us. Rather than we went to CalArts, because it's like CalArts is very, 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 very selective. So and yeah, I think both Bancroft brothers went to CalArts. Yes. But I do remember that I think what was it, only like maybe a year that they were there, and then they got picked up by Disney to have to go work. So I mean, but that's what happens, is that it gives, for a lot of CalArts alums that I've seen, it didn't take long for different companies to take notice of their work. But they are not the only school where that's possible. I mean, if I recall correctly, Jay Oliva, who is he's a storyboarding professor at LMU, but he's also he's a director and a storyboard artist and a producer, and he's a big hitter at Warner Brothers. He's worked on a lot of like DC movies and particularly animated ones, and he originally, if I recall correctly, he didn't originally just graduate from LMU and then get a job out of the gate. He got the job while he was still in school, and then he went back and finished or something like that. It was like, but he got picked up because he got noticed, because I think he didn't even really have a professional portfolio per se, but he presented his work in like a manila folder at a convention to the right people. Somebody, a talent scout from Warner Brothers, said, "Hey, you can do this. Why don't you do a test for us?" And that's what he did as a student while still being a student at the school. So just saying, it can happen.
Yeah. And also, one more thing about the conventions before Keely gets to talk, words are hard, is that like when COVID is over, I always complain about it because it's like destroyed my life, but hopefully, you know, it'll be over relatively soon. I might get a donation out of it, so we'll hope that happens at least. That's all I've been talking about on Twitter, and my parents are like, "But it's Sheds," and I'm just like, I don't care. Do you want me to be happy? You know. So anyway, I'll just add, my friend Lachlan and I were talking about it, who's been on the podcast before, and she's like, walking around Burbank with a Dalmatian is like a power move, and I'm just like, yes. So anyway, but as Keely, I'm sure all of us can attest to, like conventions, networking in person is so much faster than networking in via emails or via contacts, because something that I've learned that happens is people just like kind of blow you off during like doing emails and stuff like that. And what I've learned is that a lot of times people just don't have the time and they're afraid to be direct, and I'm very direct as a person, and then I'm like, what the hell? And they're just like, but I don't have the time. I'm just like, it's in quarantine, you have time, don't lie to me. But anyway, you know, by showing up is what they say is like half the job, but showing up and showing them your portfolio and like you're like professionally dressed, like it propels you in a different field than just, you know, sending an email. And then you can get drinks, and then you can get to know them, and if they take a personal interest to you, like, from my understanding, like, networking is how you break into the industry, because, you know, you have, like, everyone's trying to get in. Like, I haven't been trying since COVID, because I don't think a lot of people are hiring in general, and then I'm reworking my portfolio, but still, people want, you know, that's kind of the way you kind of get through a door, is because everyone is going in, but if you have a connection with someone who's going to take not take interest of you versus a stranger that just sent their portfolio, you know, that's kind of how the game works. And it's a little bit manipulative, which I kind of hate, but this is the way it is sometimes. So anyway, Keely, your turn, you can talk. So what have you learned about not doing school and like that kind of vibe?
So I'm a little bit of a mix between some schooling and self-taught. Largely self-taught throughout my whole life, but I did spend 1 year going to Savannah College of Art and Design, and during that year they give you the foundations. Like, you don't actually get into your major that year. You spend it doing like 2D design, 3D design, color theory, all that stuff. And actually, I think I benefited as an individual just from having that 1 year of concentrated study for my foundations classes, because that set me up to understand how to pursue it on my own when school fell through for me. School fell through because of finances, so it wasn't that I didn't want to continue or that I dropped out. It was just money.
Yeah, SCAD's very expensive. Like
art school's expensive. Anything that promises you a degree and it's a private school in a specialized art field, that is going to be expensive. Now, what I encourage people to think about, well, I guess, so I'll give a brief summary of what I did after that. So finances fell through. I went ahead and kept pursuing art in community college, which I went to a pretty good community college with a good visual arts program, but it was a lot different in that, like, again, Lauren, what you were saying about the community feel, it wasn't quite as strong, because you're not living on a campus, you're not constantly around other people, and you may not be as organized. Like, community college is very much pick up and go, very piecemeal as far as certain educational degrees go. So it's not like you're in a definitive program like you would be at a full-scale four-year university. However, what I did find in that was the liberty to pursue things that I was actually interested in, art-wise. So they never, and it was much more affordable than if I had tried to be like, well, what if I did black and white photography at SCAD? Like, at SCAD, I would have stayed in the animation track exclusively, and I probably wouldn't have taken any other electives, but just because your whole curriculum is filled up with it. But at community college, I was like, oh, well, I can explore this, I can explore that. And I took, I think I took a graphic design class, I took video game history. I took a bunch of things that I was just interested in that helped bolster my all-around knowledge of just, I guess, everything, but especially art-wise. For instance, black and white photography, I learned how to develop my own film, what certain things meant as far as like exposure or diffusing, or what Photoshop terms actually meant. So when I use Photoshop, I actually understand it a lot better than some of the tools than if you're just jumping into it without a prior knowledge of that. But, that's kind of just a brief example of how that affected what I do now for art and digital art. But I think, let's see. So it's a little bit harder to network. Of course, it's a community college, so a lot of people tend to kind of stay in the immediate vicinity. They don't tend to go out and branch out further unless they're going to go on to a 4-year college. So sometimes your ability to connect with people that'll get you a wider network isn't possible. So for all that, I don't think I would have traded it for anything, because I did have good classmates and good teachers, and I did learn a lot. But aside from that, I've been supplementing my own learning with online resources. Of course, everyone knows about YouTube, but if you have an internet connection, that whole world is so open to you. And now more than ever, there's a lot of industry pros that are starting their own programs. Some of them are free, some of them you have to pay for. But if you're looking for something concentrated in what you want to do, for instance, animation, there's things like, Animation Mentor is a little bit more like a structured college program. But then there's something like Taught by a Pro, which is by the Bancroft brothers. And then there's Aaron Blaze's courses, which are pretty affordable for what he offers. But it's again kind of a la carte. It's not, it's not a program that you're following. Don Bluth also has his own quote unquote university set up. What else am I forgetting? There's Animation Mentor. There's a lot of stuff. And then as far as drawing goes, you have all manner of tutorials available. But then there's artists like Proco, who specialize in certain things like anatomy and making it kind of approachable and understandable. And there's web series like what's that one called? Every Frame a Painting.
Yeah.
They don't do new episodes anymore, but they have such a backlog of like awesome material that even just watching that could really bolster, like round out your understanding when you're watching something or when you're observing a piece of art, whether it's animation or just still visual art, or movies. You can really get a cool, like 15-minute rundown of how to dissect what you're looking at. So it does take a lot more effort.
To a degree, Skillshare has some
tools
Skillshare and classes available as well.
Yes, it does. I think that just depends on who is available, who is offering those classes. Oh, there's also Schoolism by Bobby Chu.
Yeah, that was the one. I was like, I feel like we're forgetting one, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was like, that's a big one. So there's different avenues you can take as someone who maybe can't go to school, or maybe you've already got a life set up and you can't just drop everything and go to school, so you just have to kind of take it as it comes. It does take a lot more effort, though, a lot more motivation. And that is the hardest thing about it, I think. Now, just going back real quick to my 1 year at school, I always want to start off my conversation when people ask me, like, should I go to art school? Like, that's ultimately up to you and your personal financial situation. Because taking loans out for everything is a super bad idea. And like, avoid it if you can. At least try to supplement with grants and scholarships and everything as much as you can to try and make that cost go down for you in the long run. Start with community college to get your basics out of the way, and then go to your art school. Things like that I'll always suggest. But the big thing is, what I've learned is that going to an Ivy League art school does not guarantee you a job.
No.
You have to still work for it. So you can't just do the bare minimum at art school and you can come out of it being like, well, I went here and I have a degree from here, therefore I should get a job. That's just not how it works. You still, if you do go to art school, you want to make sure you take advantage of every single thing they offer. Networking wise, class wise, extracurricular, especially things that you're interested in, that can help you develop your skills further. For instance, SCAD had some classes being taught by guest professors who would come in just for a quarter. They would come in for a few months, teach their class, and then go. But they were industry veterans and people who really knew their stuff and were there just to help teach this one thing, and then they were gone. So not being afraid to be challenged in an art school setting, because you will be challenged. A lot of times when you start in an art school, you'll find out you were a big fish in a small pond back home. There's always going to be someone better than you. Yep. And so it can seem very discouraging when you start, but you're like, you know what? You just have to work. You got to put in that blood, sweat, and tears. And I know that's what a lot of people don't really want to hear. They kind of just want a solution. Just like, oh, if I go here, everything will be fine. Like, if that's all I have to do is just make it in the door. No, it doesn't quite work like that.
Yeah, no, it's like no matter what, everything that's worthwhile and lasts you a long time is going to take effort. Nothing comes immediately. And especially for so many people, I especially remember having talked to alumni before, that where it took them a long time to get a job in the industry, but especially because sometimes it was like when they came out of it, it was like, the job market wasn't doing too well. Like I knew some
there's that whole can of beans. Yeah.
So it was like, like when there's a recession or anything like that and they couldn't get one, but it didn't let them discourage them. Like it didn't stop them in their tracks. They just kept working hard and they kept trying to hone their skills. They took that time and they utilized it well. And over time they did get their breaks in the industry. So that is another important thing. Do not put that pressure on yourself to be like, okay, well, so-and-so is 20 and they're working in the industry. Do not compare yourself to other people, because that's a mental death trap. And you best believe it's something. I mean, I battle it too. It's just like to see other people doing that, to make those comparisons, it's not healthy. And I mean, I know it's a very easy pitfall to drop into and get stuck in, but you just can't do that, because everybody is they move at their own pace, and they come into their own. As time goes on, it's like that everybody has their break at some point. Big or small, it's just going to happen. But you have to. But no matter what, as long as you are working hard and putting in that effort, and you are enjoying what you do, I mean, not all of it's going to be fun, but if you can still find, that little bit of joy, knowing you're doing something that you, in the end, that you do love it, then it's all worth it. Because it is like working out. If you want the results, you have to work for it. So it's and you best believe that whether you're in a university, or whether you're taking classes on your own, or whether you're learning from even online tutorials, the work pays off. If you put in that effort, it's always going to pay off.
So yeah, just as a small addendum to that, like, that's why I say if you want to go to art school, there's a lot of benefits to it for all the reasons that Lauren mentioned earlier. Absolutely. The community and the connections, and but you just make sure that you keep yourself laser focused on taking advantage of everything while you're there. Like, get your money's worth.
Exactly.
So because if you have that opportunity, you don't want to let that go to waste. If for whatever reason you can't go, or your life has to take a different path for a while, that's okay. And even now, like, even online schooling is getting better for some of these big colleges, and and just for self-learning in general, there's so many books you can get by industry pros, and again, even just try and make an effort, like, to go to a convention and try to talk to some of your favorite artists, show them a portfolio, get some feedback. Like, you don't have to wait for an art career fair or something like that necessarily. You can just be like, put your best foot forward and, like Lauren was saying, do the work. Do the work.
Don't be afraid to talk to people. It's like,
Yes.
If nothing's going to change unless you do something to take that initiative. And people will like that you take that initiative, because it shows you're like, okay, you're a go-getter. You want this. You're not waiting for it to happen. You're going to go make it happen. And again, like going to a convention, like, you realize it doesn't, like, to your point, it doesn't have to be like a job fair or anything. You realize how many people have gotten jobs going to brony conventions. You realize how many people have become IDW artists and worked on in Dark Horse Comics and all that stuff. I mean, you realize how many people have actually gotten jobs because they were in a fandom, in a fandom based convention. Like, it's like, it can happen. And so like, no matter what convention you go to, come prepared. Have some business cards, have a portfolio if you want to bring a physical portfolio, or if you have it saved to a tablet. Let's say sometimes you may have it on a tablet or on a website that you could just pull up, make sure Wi-Fi is available. Definitely get that convention hall Wi-Fi. Just like, make sure you know your resources and utilize them well, and come prepared in all various forms in the event something happening. So it's because you never know.
And do not be afraid of constructive criticism. Like, sometimes they will, if you ask for a critique, people will be honest with you, and because that's how we grow as artists. And they may tell you something that you think you were doing right all along. And I have seen it where people get defensive about their work and like, oh, well, I was going for this, or I meant to do that. It's like, you know what? If you ask for critique from someone, it's okay to just listen. And if that wasn't the heart behind your work, fine. But if there is something technical that you need to look at that they're bringing up, don't be afraid to look at that in your own art. And, just don't be offended, and it's not personal. But if you ask for critique, be able to take it as well. So yeah, that's on the convention. Like, if you're going to approach an artist at a convention, a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, and constructive criticism versus that sucks. Yeah, it's just like,
right. Yeah,
there is a huge difference. One's not even criticism, really; it's just being an insult.
If someone's gonna be degrading like that, then that's not criticism. That's just a jerk.
With the constructive criticism, definitely always take note of what somebody says. Look at the specifics of what they say, and that's when you can try and pinpoint, because again, if you're having somebody else look at your stuff versus your own eyes, then you're getting a fresh set of eyes looking at your stuff, or a fresh set of ears listening to your story, seeing what works and what doesn't. So if after you've been staring at something for so long, you kind of think, oh, well, this works, right? It's like criticism is so, well, I should say criticism / critique. Proper criticism is like, that is so important to take heed, because it's meant to help you. That's what it is. It's not meant to hurt you. It's meant to help you become better and to help you refine your work. And just don't be afraid of it. I know we're all creatives here, and we're not the biggest fans of critique, but we know that it's there to help us. So don't be afraid of it.
that was a big thing I took away from art school, by the way, was how to critique something constructively. I had some really great professors who were very good at it. And so again, like if you're going to go, whether to a convention setting, school setting, always just be ready to absorb and learn and grow. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to add. Yeah, I guess to round it out, it's all dependent on like what you want to get out of. Oh, I remember what I was going to talk about. I was going to say like, take advantage of like online collaborative projects. So like not necessarily like all our team and Team KP and all that stuff, but by putting yourself in those situations, you have something for your resume and you can meet people and you can get critique on a more regular basis than just putting stuff on DeviantArt and just hoping something or someone comes by. There's tons of like, fandom thingies these days, like back in my day, but like with COVID and everything, trying to like having people find ways to be creative like with maps and like all sorts of different things. So like, don't see it, especially if they're nonprofit, don't see it as like, oh, they're taking advantage of me. It's like, well, it depends. It also depends what you get out of it too. Like go in with like expectations of how you want to improve and then communicate those and, just be, how do you want to grow? Do you want to grow like as you're getting out of your style? As long as your boundaries are set and as long as you're being healthy with your time, then I totally recommend those. And a lot of them is just on a case-by-case basis. But like that's an example of someone who might not be in art school, might not have the resources, but they're trying to do something anyway, and they're trying to be creative in a community anyway, and putting themselves in those opportunities. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think we're good. Any closing points you guys want to make, or Keely, where can people follow you online?
Oh, well, mainly, I update more on Instagram. So my tag there is KeyLime Creations. And then, I do stream at least once a week on Twitch as well. So if you want to watch me do any art, sometimes it's digital, sometimes it's traditional, sometimes even occasionally animation. Very rarely, but I'm trying to get more into it. That is KeyLime Keely on Twitch. And yeah, I do have a Facebook page and a Twitter as well. But Instagram and Twitch are really my biggest places right now. So
yeah, I remember when I showed Lauren your art and I'm like, Keely's good, and she's like, oh my god, Keely's so good. So
thank you.
Real talk, that is my reaction.
Oh, I appreciate that. No, that means a lot, because as we've been talking about on this podcast, it's a journey and it's not always easy, especially coming from more of a self-taught perspective. It takes a lot of motivation and a lot of I don't feel like doing this today, but I'm gonna. So
and yeah, that's a lot of what, one of the biggest advantages of school is like, if you're someone like me who won't do anything unless like you have a gun to your head, like having school kind of provides that structure, and you have deadlines and you have people counting on you, and then it kind of forces you into that corner versus just like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it the next day, it's fine. So I think same thing with like the team internet projects is like you can't just blow it off because you have people waiting to receive your work, so you have a big internet mom that will come and slap you with a ruler or whatever. So
don't make me give you a timeout.
Don't make me sit you in the bad corner. Yeah, so I'll just give the closing things. So if you're new to the podcast, I doubt this is your first episode, but welcome to the podcast. Subscribe to the main channel, as I tell people. We did, like, I think I mentioned this last week, but we did a big She-Ra video, and then no one cared, and then I got sad. But not like no one, but like, anyway. So go watch that stuff. We have a lo-fi loopy thingy, the Bob, that you can bookmark and listen to in the background. And
that does have animation in it too, for people who like to watch animated stuffs. And yeah, so like I did, there's like, so the lo-fi loop has like, I guess you could say like, it has a little animated KP doodling, and she's got little thought bubbles going on of what she's thinking about while she's drawing. And I did work on one of those little animations. It's she does have a Lion King thought bubble at one point, and I did animate the Simba in that, and that was like, I've never animated Simba before in my life before this, but I was so happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, I was just like, I usually, like I said before, I usually don't assign Lauren to teamwork, but I'm like, hey, so we're doing all these movies that I like, and you like Simba, do you want the Simba? And she's like, yes, I want Simba. So, you know.
Like, he was a figurative and literal beast, but I'm so happy with how he turned out. Like, it's the end product. That was the payoff, and I was so happy with it.
I didn't even have to yell at her to be on model or anything. She just did it. So, good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then, so, yeah, I bookmark it, and sometimes I watch it. Like, I put on my TV downstairs because I'm like, well, at least I'm watching it. So, you know. And then we'll probably have live streams upcoming soon. So keep an eye out for those. Follow us on all the social medias. They're all below in the thingy, so Twitter and stuff. Yeah, and then we upload every Wednesday usually, unless something bad happens. So, but if you're new anyway, then there's tons of backlog. This is episode 28, so yeah, you're good. It's fine. So, yeah. So thanks again, Keely, for joining us, and
yeah, thank you.
I hope
thanks for having me.
Yeah, I hope this discussion helped you learn about what to do art-wise. And then last thing is, if you don't know how to do things art-wise, then there's an Art for Beginners episode that we have. And we'll probably do a more in-depth frame-by-frame episode too in the future. So if you need to know what that is, then we got you, fam. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, hopefully it eased some people's minds listening to this and dreading, especially if there's anybody that's like currently in high school and they're thinking about if they have to go to an art school or if they feel like if art school's the right for them or anything like that. That hopefully it's put your mind at ease a little bit to think, hey, you have your options, so you can do whatever you choose to do. So there's a will and a way for it all. So yeah.
A lot more options now than there used to be. So
don't feel sad that you're not in California like I did for like the majority of my life. Okay, we'll see you guys next time. See you later. Bye.
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 Thank you so much for listening to Animation Communication on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider. We are really hoping this show makes a difference in how people view animation and media, as well as giving and providing advice for people all over the world who like or want to join the animation or media industry. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and rate those 5 stars, as well as tell your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our main YouTube channel, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, and turn those notifications on. My name is Scribbler, and you have been listening to Animation Communication.